Napoleon once said, "History is written by the winners." And since then, many other great thinkers have argued that the winners write the history books. And why do the winners write the history books? It's not because they're the only people left and somebody has to write a book. It's because they want to make their side look righteous. They want to make their side look like the good side, and whoever they defeated, they want to make sure that that side looks like the bad side. But I don't think that this quote is complete. I don't think quotes like that winners write the history book, that's not the full quote. There's two parts to it. First, you have to write the history book. And second, you have to make sure that the students in your country are gullible enough to believe your version of history. You have to make sure that while the students in your country can literally sound out the words that they can read, you don't want them to read critically enough to know when you're just hitting them with propaganda. You want them to learn to read uncritically. The winners write the history books and make sure that the students are dumb enough to believe them. That, to me, is the full quote. And for most of you in your education, I know certainly for me in my own education, you were taught in a way that there were blinders put on you, that you weren't taught to read critically enough so that when you read a history book or a science book or any other kind of textbook, you basically took it as absolute fact. You might say, oh yeah, the history books in other countries might be full of propaganda, but our history book, that's totally honest. There's no propaganda in there at all, which of course is an absurd position. Because you were taught to not see these hidden agendas, because you weren't taught to see agendas at all, it actually makes it harder for you to get a perfect score on reading or to get even a high score on the reading section of the SAT. The reading section of the SAT will often rely on your ability to detect either very obvious agendas that the author has, or maybe more subtle agendas that the author has. But the issue is, in your education, you've been taught to not see agendas. The winners wrote your history books and made sure that you were dumb enough to believe them. And what we're going to do here at Vora Method is help you build and even rebuild that ability to see agendas, to see the motivations that authors have. Here's the thing. Most of the time, if you write a paper, your motivation is obvious. You want to get a high grade and you don't want your mom to yell at you. But for most adults, that's not really the reason that most adults are going to write nonfiction. Occasionally, almost never, the reason that somebody writes nonfiction is to give you some information. Be like, here's some information. Usually nonfiction, and for that matter, even a lot of fiction, is actually written to persuade, to make you have a particular view of the world. Nonfiction is persuasive writing. What you think of as persuasive writing, which is very, very obviously persuasive, is usually just ineffective. That's just somebody just sort of throwing out their opinion. Real persuasive writing that actually persuades people is going to look a lot more like history.